So the next definition is actually superheated vapor. Superheated vapor. What it is actually? See, the vapor. See, when we try to heat water, it gets converted to. If I do get, I'm going to get a mixture of water and vapor. Then it's going to completely get converted to the vapor at 0.3, as I told. Now the vapor when I try to increase the temperature further, actually, so beyond the saturation temperature, so whatever the vapor I'm going to get, actually, that is called as superheated vapor. Okay, the vapor whose temperature whose temperature is beyond or greater than, okay, is greater than, is greater than the saturation temperature, greater than the saturation temperature. Okay, and the corresponding vapor is called as superheated. Is called as superheated vapor. Okay. Now, most of the your maybe steam turbines and all, you take it, actually, they try to use this superheated vapor because the superheated vapor behaves like a perfect gas. So I'm going to apply. I can apply the gas equations, perfect gas equations, on a superheated condition because I don't have any wet component over there, so I can apply over there. So PV is equal to MRT kind of an equations and all. So those kind of equations I can apply for this particular. Now, see, I'm telling you that this temperature is greater than your saturation temperature. By what number? Okay, by what number? Say, for example, if at a given pressure of maybe 1 bar, the saturation temperature is the atmospheric temperature, the saturation temperature 100 degrees Celsius. Suppose my superheated temperature is say 180 degrees Celsius. Then what is this degree of? There is something called as difference between the superheated temperature 180 degrees and the saturation temperature. The difference of 180 minus 100, that we call it as degree of superheat. Okay, we'll write that. This is the last definition. Degree of superheat. Degree of superheat. So it is the temperature. See, it is a numerically. It's a numerical value by which the temperature of the superheated vapor is exceeding the saturation temperature. Okay, it is the numerical value. The numerical value. Okay, beyond which, by which the superheated vapor, by which the superheated vapor, okay, exceeds or exceeds the saturation temperature, exceeds the saturation temperature. Okay, what it is actually, that means if I call, so T superheat, degree of superheat is equal to T superheated temperature, that is, this we call a T soup. Let me call this as T soup. Okay, let me call it as T soup minus T saturation. So the difference we call it as degree of superheat. Okay, this is about some important terms. Though we'll look into some more terms as we proceed. Now, there is something called as PVT surface. Okay, there is something called as PVT surface. If you go back and see yesterday what we have seen, actually, we have seen the pressure volume diagram. I have a pressure volume diagram and I have a pressure temperature diagram. Is it possible for us to superimpose and get a three-dimensional diagram? That means I need to get this one, which is a PV diagram, and I need to get your PT diagram, which is PT. So PVT, that is pressure, volume, temperature. It's a three-dimensional thing. We call it as a surface diagram. Okay, we'll look into that actually. What it is. Okay, pressure, volume, temperature, surface diagram. Surface diagram, what it is. Okay. So I have the, rather writing it, I have a three-dimensional sketch which is shown here. Now, you look at it closely. I am looking from this side. Okay. So pressure is there on the y-axis and the volume is there on the x-axis. Okay. That means if I try to, if the observer is here, so let me write the I here. Okay. The observer is from this side. I will able to see the pressure volume diagram. That means what I can see, this is my saturation line. Look at this particular thing. I can see this is my saturation lines. So this is my saturation line. This is one more saturated vapor line. This is saturated liquid line. Okay. This is your what we call, what is happening. So this particular thing, what we can see, this is a dome. What you could see is a dome. So here I have a solid, here I have a liquid, on this side I have the vapor. So anything beyond your critical point, it's completely vapor or a gas. Okay. And look at this, temperature lines. What is the temperature? See, one more thing is, if the observer is from this side, if the observer is here, I could see the pressure and the temperature here. See. So if you go back, look at this two diagrams I am trying to superimpose. Look at this. So pressure, volume, I'm from the left side. So I do have this blue color one dome. Then I have the expansion, all those things I can have the critical, this thing and all. Then if you look at the right hand side, it is a PT, that is pressure, temperature. I'm looking from the front. One is from the side, other one was from the front. So I'm going to combine this, and whatever I'm going to get, that is called as pressure, volume, temperature, surface diagram. Okay. Now if I am trying to look from here actually, so this is, what is this actually? See, these are my sublimation curves and all. Look at this sublimation curve, triple line. See, this is my triple point. Look at this. This is my triple point. And the line which is, it's a three-dimensional thing, it's a triple line. And all your constant temperature, look at this. This temperature lines, they are almost parallel to this particular thing. So they are almost, see, the temperature is almost constant. These are constant temperature lines. These are constant temperature lines. Okay. Now, why this particular thing is more important? And this is the critical point. See, on a single pressure, volume, temperature, three-dimensional diagram, okay, the change in pressure, the specific volume, and the temperature can be shown at one go. Okay. And all the equilibrium states, so for a pure substance, so maybe whether it is in solid phase, or it is melted to liquid phase, or in case of, or it is converted to vapor, all the things can be shown at one go. Okay, critical point, sublimation curve, vapor line, everything I can show in one go. Okay, that's the advantage of having this. Okay. Now, so you try to explain, see, whatever we have to, so the explanation should be something like this. In the pressure volume diagram, I do have a saturation line. So saturation liquid line, saturation vapor line, a critical point, so which will be of a particular pressure 220 bar and 374 degrees Celsius. So then this is my critical isotherm. Whatever this is my critical isotherm. Critical isotherm or critical constant temperature line. Okay. And all the lines that pass through here, so they are all passing through your, what we call it as inside your dome, all your temperature lines. That means if I want to go back to this PV diagram and look at any kind of temperature lines, look at this. It will be something like this. It will come here, it will go here, then it will go like this. It will come here, it will go like this. These are isothermal lines. Those are isothermal lines. So I can represent all these things in a single PVT surface. So what I am showing is for a water. So this is for a water. A similar kind of PVT surface we can have it for oxygen, nitrogen or hydrogen, which are all the examples for gases, and which are also pure substances. Okay, is that clear? So this is what a PVT surface, pressure, volume, temperature, surface diagram, all they call it as PVT surface diagram. Is it clear? Any doubts? So if there are no doubts, we'll move to the next topic. Okay.
Sir, could you just show the image again, sir?
Yeah, fine. Okay, I'll leave it for a couple of minutes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Now, see, other than this, there are other two-dimensional, we call it as property diagrams, what you studied in your basic thermodynamics. Property diagrams. See, property diagrams for pure substances. Pure substances. So there are 4 different diagrams actually. There are 4 different diagrams for all the pure substances. I'm trying to generalize this and trying to tell you. Okay, there are 4 different things. One is the pressure volume diagram, which already we have seen. So pressure volume diagram for all those things, where this is the saturation curve. This is the saturation curve. Okay, and this is my critical point, and I'm going to see this. So anything to the left hand side is the liquid, to the right hand side is the vapor, and inside we have the wet vapor or mixture of liquid and water. Now similarly, look at this, how we are going to write the dome. How we are going to write the dome? The dome is not going to remain same. The dome will be different for different diagrams. Okay, now if I show a TS diagram, temperature entropy diagram, so this side I'll be having the liquid, this is completely vapor, this is your wet vapor. So it is more uniform in case of a TS diagram, the dome is, but it takes a different kind of a shape. The shape of your dome is, this is what you have to, it has to be very precise for any kind of pure, maybe what we call it as the property diagrams. This is called as pressure volume diagram and all. Now, see, when we go for refrigeration, even for pure substance also, we come across something called as pressure enthalpy diagram. That is pH. So we have the enthalpy on the x-axis, pressure on the y-axis. So in that case, your dome looks little different. Dome looks a different shape actually. So this is the shape of your dome. So where I have the liquid to the left hand side, we have the vapor to the right hand side, and in between you will have the mixture of your wet vapor. Now HS diagram, which is also called as your Mollier diagram, which I am going to discuss more on this Mollier diagram. I'm going to discuss more on the Mollier diagram. See, in the Mollier diagram, your dome is more, see, it is more of a little bit slightly flatter. Okay, slightly flatter, then it will go and it will go in this direction. If I try to extend it, it will go and it will be more like a flatter. Okay, that's how your Mollier diagram will be. And if I try to draw the pressure lines on a TS diagram, okay, if I try to draw a pressure lines on the TS diagram, it will be something like this. Okay, they are all something like this. They are all diverging. They are all pressure lines. So whenever you are trying to put an HS diagram or TS diagram and all, TS diagram is always we try to put the pressure lines. So higher pressure at the top, see, this is the higher pressure, this is P high, this is P low. The lowest pressure is at the bottom and highest, they are not parallel, they are diverging. They are diverging. They are not parallel. Now, what will happen in case of HS diagram? Okay, in HS diagram also, maybe your pressure lines will be going something like this. The pressure lines will be going something, they are also diverging. Okay, they are also diverging. They will be going something like this, diverging. And what about the constant volume lines? See, the constant volume lines will be little flatter. See, the diverging will happen after the saturation line. So this is my saturation line. Saturation curve or saturation line. So it gets, see, your pressure lines also will get steeper after your, when once I enter the superheated condition, your pressure lines and your constant volume lines will become more steeper compared to what it was in the wet region or in the liquid region. Okay, this is your constant volume lines. This is your constant pressure lines. At any given point, I want to get the value of a given temperature or a value. So just draw, see on a TS diagram, if I draw an horizontal line, I will get the corresponding temperature. If I draw a vertical line, I will get the corresponding entropy. Okay, then at any given point on your what we call HS diagram, you draw an horizontal line at any given point. Just draw an horizontal line at any given point, you will get the corresponding H. So draw a vertical line, you will get the corresponding entropy line. So in Mollier diagram, see what type of process, see when I'm trying to execute a vertical line, this is your entropy is equal to 0. That means change in entropy is 0, or I'm trying to execute a reversible adiabatic process. So if I'm moving from point 1 to 2, expansion, steam expands from a higher pressure of 10 bar at 250 degrees Celsius to 5 bar at some 70 degrees Celsius or something. But once it enters a dome, actually, you look at this point 2, it has entered a wet vapor region. So what I have is, other than this, actually, I will be having what is called as your, what we call a dryness fraction line. So dryness fraction lines will be going something like this. These are my dryness fraction lines, which will be going from your critical point. So this is my critical point. This is not the thing. This is the critical point. So dryness fraction line. So these are my X lines, and X is some 0.95 or something here. X will be, so as I move towards left hand side, X decreases. So it becomes more and more wet. So this is how you can look at different property diagrams. Okay, whether it is a pressure volume diagram, maybe pressure enthalpy diagram, we'll discuss more when we come to your refrigeration cycles. pH charts, very similar to your pure substances or PV diagram, but we'll be using more. So there we won't use HS diagram, but we'll be using the pH chart and TS diagrams. So this is how we'll be using, and we'll be using it. So I'll be discussing more on pH charts in the refrigeration cycles. So here for other kind of maybe TS diagram or HS diagram, so we'll be using here. See what we'll be using in this pure substances on your vapor cycles. We'll be using your steam tables. We'll be using your Mollier diagram to get the enthalpy, entropy, specific volume, pressure, temperature. So these 5 things we'll try to look into that. Other than this, we'll try to see what is the type of steam we are dealing with, whether it is a wet steam, whether it is a dry steam, whether it is a superheated steam. We try to look into all these types of steam. Okay, so we'll have, see, dry saturated steam means it will be on your dry superheated, maybe it will be on your dry saturation line or vapor saturation line. If it is a superheated condition, it is above your saturation line. If it is wet vapor line, or it is simply a water vapor, or it's a simply we call it as a mixture of vapor and water, means it will be below your saturation line. So that's a simple thing. So anything is all the things that's below your critical point. Is that clear? Okay. See, some more terms which we need to for the steam formation. Now, so we have a sketch what is called as how the steam gets formed. Formation of steam. Formation of steam, actually. Let's try to look into this. Formation of steam. What it is actually. Already we have seen. Now, we will go beyond. We have seen till the formation of steam till it becomes dry steam. Now we'll try to go beyond that formation of steam. Now suppose I am taking 1 kg of water, okay, 1 kg of water at 0 degrees Celsius. Look at this. This is not solid. Earlier, when I started the class, I told it at 20 degrees. Just to explain, to introduce you to concept of how the steam is produced. Now, how the formation of steam? Steam, if the water is at 0 degrees Celsius, so if I try to measure the volume of that particular water at 0 degrees Celsius, VF, volume of water at 0 degrees Celsius, I'm going to put it in the cylinder with a weight and a piston. Okay. Now, what will happen? I'm going to increase the temperature of water from 0 degrees Celsius to saturation temperature. Now, the saturation temperature depends on the pressure what I'm going to consider. Whether I'm going to consider an atmospheric pressure, whether I'm going to apply 1 bar or 2 bar or 3 bar. So, the saturation temperature corresponds to the saturation pressure. Okay. So, saturation pressure. Now, what will happen once the saturation temperature is reached? If I still add some more heat to it, okay, if I add some more heat to it, actually, what will happen? The part of water gets converted to steam and its volume increases. So, the volume change will happen after reaching the saturation temperature. Till that, the volume of the water remains same. That means when I go and look into your steam tables, so volume of the liquid or volume of the fluid is valid till the saturation temperature. Okay. Now at the saturation temperature, what can happen actually? So slowly the volume is increasing. So what will happen? I need to consider the volume of the fluid, that is liquid, plus volume of the vapor by what percentage? It is 10% wet, 20% wet, 30% wet, or 40% wet. So depending upon the percentage of that particular dryness fraction, what we call, I am going to consider what is the volume of that particular wet steam. Okay. Now it is completely, see what is happening here. Now the volume, what I'm going to get actually, now it is completely, it has become dry saturated steam. Okay. Now if you look at it actually, so this is my volume of the liquid. Okay. Look at this volume of the liquid earlier. Now, what is the volume of the steam? Complete dry saturated steam is G. What is the volume of the wet steam? Okay, if I want at any given point, you want to calculate, this will be volume of the dry steam minus volume of the fluid or your liquid multiplied by its dryness fraction. Multiplied its dryness fraction, where it is 0.7 or 0.8. Dryness fraction is any number between 0 and 1. 0 means it's completely liquid. 1 means completely dry. Are you getting? So this, like this, I'm going to calculate the volume of that particular thing. Now, if I try to go beyond your dry saturated steam by simply increasing the temperature, by a temperature, we call it as degree of superheat, how much it is. If it is 100 degrees of saturation temperature, I can go beyond that 150 degrees or 180 degrees, 200 degrees or 250 degrees, but at the same pressure. So now, what is the volume corresponding to that super? So compared to your dry saturated steam, the volume of superheated steam is much higher. So we call that as V soup or volume of the superheated steam. Okay. The steam at that particular point is called as superheated steam. Okay. Now, if I try to draw a temperature versus heat addition picture, okay, if I try to draw a temperature versus heat addition, then I'll go to the TS diagram. So if I try to draw a temperature versus heat addition, let me draw that. Okay. Temperature versus heat addition. This is my temperature and heat addition. Heat addition. Okay. Now, what will happen actually? The water vapor will start heating. So, if I try to, what will happen? I am going to have a curve or something like this. The water heating. I'm going to increase its temperature, water heating. Then I will be having what is called as evaporation. So which is a constant temperature, because this is my saturation temperature. So this is, we call it as evaporation. So this is water heating. Okay, this is, I'm going to heat the water at some temperature. It can start with 0 or whatever it may be. Now, if I go beyond this, okay, if I go beyond this, actually what will happen? What I'm going to get the superheated condition. So this is called as superheating. Okay. Now, if I try to draw this vertical line, okay, at any given point, okay, so let's use a different, yeah, this thing actually. I try to draw this vertical line and try to define what are these actually, okay, at any given point. Okay, what is this called? What type of heat is this called? And what is this called? What is this called actually beyond this particular point? Okay, and see the heat supplied, see this particular point, we call this as sensible heat. That is the heat required to change the heat supplied to the water from the given temperature to till its saturation temperature. Okay, till its saturation temperature. So if you try to look in terms of this heat is equal to, it's in terms of enthalpy we'll call. So if I try to look into your steam table, this will be the HF, heat addition, also your enthalpy, because for this kind of a process, heat addition will be equal to your H, Q is equal to H. Okay. Now during this evaporation, what we call actually, we call this as latent heat. Okay. It is denoted by HFG. And then whatever we are going to add after this particular thing, we call that as heat of superheat. Heat of superheat, or simply we'll put as H soup. Anything. So at any given point, let it be. See, at any given point, if I have this thing actually, so I am heating to this particular temperature. So this is your tea soup. Superheated temperature. I have a saturation temperature. This may be your inlet temperature of the water. It can be 0 degrees or it can be 10 or 20, whatever it may be. So till the saturation, whatever the heat I am going to supply, that is your sensible heat, and whatever the heat that is supplied during the evaporation, it is called as a latent heat, and whatever the heat that is supplied beyond your superheated condition, we call that as superheated or heat of superheat. And this is the graphical, see whatever I told, no, this particular thing, formation of the thing, this I can call it as simply a graphical representation of the heat or formation of the steam. Whatever I explained here, that was in the form of a sketch. Now the same thing I can explain on your TSTH diagram or TQ diagram, whatever. Is that clear? Now the same thing I can explain on a TS diagram also. Okay, the same thing I can explain on a formation of the steam on a TS diagram. Let me explain this. Let me take a little up. So formation of the steam using TS diagram. This is also so formation of steam using TS diagram. So in the exam or somewhere in the intros and all, they may ask this, whether PV diagram or TS diagram or HS diagram, whatever it may be. Now, say for example, I have the water at some temperature, maybe at 0 degrees Celsius, or say if it is See, anything below your 0 degree Celsius, I may be having a solid. See here, it may be solid ice also. Okay. Now what will happen? See, the latent heat of fusion. See, here, the amount of heat required to melt your ice at a temperature lower than at 0 degree Celsius till it reaches the 0 degree Celsius. We call that as, we call it as heat of, maybe we can call it as that particular thing, heat required for the solid. That is sensible heat for the solid. Now, even at 0 degree Celsius, the solid has to melt. See, whatever this particular thing is completely solid here. I am trying to get it actually. Now here what's happening? The solid to liquid. At 0 degree Celsius, I am going to heat it. If I supply the heat, what will happen? The ice will start melting at 0 degree Celsius, and at 0.3 it is completely melted to water or liquid, but the temperature is same. And this 2 to 3, this is called as latent heat of fusion. This is very, very important. Latent heat of fusion. Okay, latent heat of fusion, and this value is found to be around 335 kilojoules per kg. Experimentally, they have found it at atmospheric pressure. In some of the problems, they try to give this actually and they will try to add this particular thing into enthalpy. So that is around 335 kilojoules per kg. Anyhow, this is maybe importance wise, this is not that much actually. Maybe converting from solid to liquid and all. But more important is actually from the 0.3. From the 0.3 where I do have a liquid, and this is your sensible heat of water. What I studied, no, what we showed here, sensible heat, water heating. This is the water heating, this is the sensible heat. This is your latent heat of your vapor something, and this is your heat of superheat, where your heat of super exists. And the corresponding entropy change is what I have shown. So delta S3 is the entropy change during sensible heating. Delta S4 is the entropy change during your phase change. Okay, delta S is the entropy change during your heat of superheat. So why this particular thing is important actually? So they may ask, what is the change in entropy? Find the change in entropy during the process. So what we have to do? So you have to take this. See, this is for a particular pressure. This is for a particular pressure, some P1. This may be some particular pressure P2. P1 may be some 1 bar. P2 may be some 3 bar or whatever it may be. And this is your degree of superheat. So what we have to do? We should be able to go to the particular pressure. What is the corresponding temperature? I should be able to get the values of entropy from your steam tables. So from your steam tables or your entropy enthalpy diagram, whatever it may be, HS diagram or whatever it may be, I should be able to get the value. So now, what are the things which are important here? Enthalpies, your specific volumes, your entropies, your temperature and pressure. So these 5 quantities are very, very important. And depending upon the condition of the steam, or it is in liquid condition, or it's in wet vapor condition, or it's a superheated condition, I should be able to get these numbers and try to do the mathematical calculations or try to understand what is the kind of steam I am trying to use it for that particular applications. That clear? So that was a TQ or TH diagram simply. This is a TS diagram. So I need to look at the entropy changes. I need to look at what is the maybe enthalpy changes, or I need to look at how this maybe schematically how the steam formation takes place from a liquid at a 0 degree Celsius at any lower degree temperature, that is 0 or 10 or 20, whatever it may be, till it reaches the superheated conditions. So this is a simple explanation of your formation of your steam. Is that clear? Any doubts? Okay. So before we move into some of the very important definitions and all, so let us try to understand more understanding on your enthalpy entropy diagram, which is there in your most of your steam tables. Okay, most of your steam tables, you have this particular enthalpy entropy diagram, or it is also called as Mollier diagram or Mollier chart, which is used to solve most of the numericals. Okay. Now, when you look at it actually, what is the values of it? You look very clearly, closely look into the values of this particular thing on your HS diagram. If you have a Mollier chart, please try to open and have a look at it. See, on your x-axis, I do have the entropy values. Entropy in S is actually S is the entropy value, which will be in kilojoules per kg, degree Kelvin. On your y-axis, I do have the enthalpy values, and whose values are kilojoules per kg, and corresponding values are h, small h and small s, because there are specific enthalpy and specific entropy, to be very precise. To be very precise, the values on x-axis is specific entropy, the values on y-axis are specific enthalpy. Okay. Now, the dark line is there, the dark black line, that is called as your saturation line. So you won't see any wet region or something in your Mollier diagram. What you see is, you won't see any liquid region, You won't see any liquid region. What you see is actually, you'll be seeing the wet region and the superheated region. Okay, most of the times or majority of times. So this is your critical point. Look at this. That means I am going to see only a part of your Mollier diagram, which is very, very important for us. So if this is my critical point, this is my critical point. So I'm trying to see only the right hand portion of it in your Mollier diagram. That means this is your vapor saturation line. Okay. Now you can see these are my constant temperature lines, the constant temperature lines. Okay, so it starts with the lower one. See, you look at it actually. So this is the T1, T2, T3, T4, T5, T6, T7, and they're flat. They are flat actually. They are not steep. They are almost flat. So these are called as superheated constant temperature lines. So you look at the point 2. Say it is at a particular pressure P3 with a degree of superheat of maybe 200 degrees Celsius. So 220 is just below the 220 degrees Celsius. So T4 corresponds to 200 degrees Celsius. Let's assume that sometime. That means whenever I need to get a superheated condition, I need to look above your saturation line. So this is the one. I need to look at above this saturation line at any given point. If I want to look at it, this is also superheated condition. This is also superheated condition. So your pressure line and your temperature line, wherever it intersects. So if suppose if it is instead of 220, it is, say if I tell her 280 degrees Celsius. So I have to interpolate it. So I have to draw an imaginary line. So I should be able to draw an imaginary line. Okay, then it is intersecting at P4. So I should be able to get this line. So don't tell that, sir, this line is missing and all. So in between the values you have to do. So that's why whatever the values we are going to get from your Mollier diagram, they are not very accurate, but we'll be getting a value which are very nearer to what you are looking at. So a close approximation can be done from your Mollier diagram. But if I want to solve any numerical more precisely, I will depend on steam tables. But if I go with the steam tables, it is time consuming. If I use Mollier diagram, I can do the same numerical faster manner. But we have to pay the penalties, maybe accuracy level is very less. That's the only difference. Now, if I try to come below this, if I try to come inside, say if I tell that I'm executing an isentropic process, so I will follow this particular path. I will draw a vertical line from 2 to 3. I'm going to draw a vertical path from 2 to 3. That means I'm entering a wet region. Look at this. I'm going to enter a wet region here. A wet region means actually, if I at any given point I want to find the enthalpy, means I will simply draw an horizontal line. Look at this. Okay, I'm simply drawing an horizontal line. So at 3, 2, that's the one. At 3, this is the one. Simply I'm going to draw the horizontal line. The left hand side I'll get the entropy. Sorry, enthalpy. So if I draw a vertical line, I'll be getting the corresponding enthalpy. It's a constant enthalpy line. Okay, it's a constant enthalpy. So that particular value I'm going to get it. Okay. Now, what is it actually? This particular enthalpy is maybe H2 minus H3 will show the difference in the enthalpy, or what is the heat loss due to the expansion. If I want it, actually it is H2 minus H3. So that's a different thing. Now, I want to find, see, at point 3 it is not dry. See, if this would have reached this particular point, okay, if that would have reached this particular point here, okay, instead of 2 to 3, if I am just touching this saturation line, that means it is just dry. So if I draw an horizontal line corresponding to that, so I'll be directly getting the HGR, dry's enthalpy corresponding to that expansion. Are you getting? So if I'm going from 2 to 0.3, it is 3 at 0.3, it is wet steam. If it is dry steam on the saturation, so anything touching the saturation line, okay, it's a dry condition. And the corresponding, if I draw an horizontal line, I'll be getting the enthalpy line or enthalpy value, which is corresponding to that condition, whether it's a dry condition or a wet condition or a superheated condition. Now, I want to get the, what is the corresponding dryness fraction. I told, so a higher value of dryness fraction means the quantity of vapor is more. If I tell it is 90% dry, so dryness fraction is 0.9. If I tell the dryness fraction is 0.8, it is 80% dry. That means 20% water vapor, 20% water and 80% vapor. So these are, so you can see this, these are called as dryness fraction lines. Dryness fraction lines. Okay, these are called as dryness fraction lines, and wherever it's going to intersect, see, look at this particular thing. This will, see, 0.9 is there, so I need to draw one imaginary line. I need to draw one imaginary line somewhere like this. So just parallel to this particular thing. So this may be point x is equal to some 0.92 or something, 92 or 93. Just I'm making it. So that's why in the Mollier chart you may be getting a close approximation, not an accurate one. So the corresponding to the x, corresponding to 0.3, the value of dryness fraction is 0.92 or 0.93. That's a close approximation. So you have this constant pressure lines which are almost like diverging, and they become more steeper in the your superheated condition. Other than this actually, I do have the constant volume lines also are there which are missing here. So constant volume lines will be going somewhere like this. So the constant volume lines a little bit flatter compared to this thing. The constant volume lines will be going. Maybe if you look into your this thing, so maybe please call it as V, small specific volume. So I can find the specific volume values also in your steam tables, or sorry, in your Mollier chart. So what are the things I can get it actually from your Mollier diagram? I can get the pressure, I can get the specific volume, I can denote the temperature, I can denote the enthalpy, I can get the entropy, and I can get the dryness fraction. All these things I can easily get at one go with minimal effort. The only thing is you have to practice it to get these values. Okay, until unless you practice, it will be difficult for you. Is that clear? Now, let us try to look at some of the some important things actually. So whatever we told actually, so I told sensible heat, I told about latent heat, I told about a dryness fraction. So we'll try to define those terms. Okay. So definition of the terms. So any doubts with this entropy enthalpy diagram, HS diagram or Mollier diagram? If it is clear, I can move to the terms actually. So these are all the property diagrams corresponding to your pure substances are done. Is it clear? So if it is clear, I'll move forward. Okay. Very important definitions. Some of the very important definitions corresponding to your two sentences. We'll try to look into that. The first thing is the sensible heat. Okay. First thing is the sensible heat. Important definitions. So definitions of certain terms, important terms. Yes? Someone want to speak? Hello? So definitions of important terms. I feel someone has unmuted. Who is it? Kiran, please mute it. Kiran, mute it. Okay, fine. So now important definitions. First thing is sensible heat. Okay. The first definition is the sensible heat, which already I have shown, but we'll try to define it actually. Sensible heat. So it is the amount of heat required. It is the amount of heat required. Heat required by 1 kg of water at 0 degrees Celsius. Okay, at lower temperature. Okay, to its saturation condition. To its saturation condition till it reaches the saturation condition. And this is simple definition. I am going to give very simple definitions. Okay, till it reaches the saturation condition. So it is given by mathematically HF. Okay, this is HF is equal to the Cp of water, difference of saturation temperature to your given temperature, which is 0 degrees Celsius. Any given temperature, that is 0 degrees Celsius. And this is called as enthalpy of sensible heat. Is see, this also called as enthalpy of water. Enthalpy of water. Okay, directly you can get it from the steam tables with a value HF or HL, depending upon the steam tables. Now the second definition, latent heat. Latent heat. Okay, so this is HFG. It is the amount of heat required to convert 1 kg of water at saturation temperature to its dry condition or whatever we look at. Okay, it is the amount of heat required to convert. It is the amount of heat required. Heat required to convert water at the saturation temperature, that is a given temperature, saturation temperature. Okay, water heat required, water at saturation temperature, to any condition. It required to convert, see, this is the amount of heat required to convert water at saturation temperature, okay, into steam at saturation temperature into steam. Okay, steam at the same temperature and pressure. At the same temperature and pressure. That means there is no increase in there is no change in the temperature. Okay. Now, whether the value of latency is constant, okay, see the value of latency will change with the pressure. So at 1 bar, it may be having one value. maybe see if I try to look at it, if you go here, let me try to explain that. That means latent heat. Okay. Yeah. This one. Look at this particular value. This value. This is for a particular pressure. Some P is equal to 1 bar or something. So if I try to get another value at 2 bar, so the curve will change something like this. So the curve will be something like this. Okay. So it will become bigger, then it will go like this. So if I try to draw a dome, see this is how it is actually. So I'm going to get a bigger dome. So I'm going to get a dome like this. So this value, this is your what is called as HFG will keep increasing. That means your HFG is different for different values of pressures. That means this is not constant. Okay, that's what I want to tell. See, the latent heat is not constant. Is not a constant. It's not a constant and varies according to pressure. And varies according to the pressure. That if I have higher pressure, I will be getting a higher HFG. If it is a lower pressure, I will be getting a lower HFG. Okay. Next definition. Is it clear? The next one, third one, dryness fraction. Dryness fraction, which is X. What it is actually? It is the ratio of mass of dry vapor to the total mass of the water vapor. Okay, so water vapor consists of water plus vapor. Okay, the combination or see, when I try to look at it actually, the term dryness fraction is related to wet steam. Okay, the ratio of the mass of the actual dry steam to the mass of the steam containing in it, which may be the combination of mass of liquid plus mass of water. Are you getting? So it is related to wet steam condition. That is wet steam. It is the ratio of mass of dry. So mass of actual dry steam. So it's a ratio of mass of dry steam. Mass of dry steam to the mass of the wet steam. Okay, mass of the steam or whatever it may, simply we call it as mass of the steam which is wet. Okay, so now it is, as I told, most of the times it's denoted by the letter X. Now if I take the value, see mass of dry steam as mg. Okay, so if I take mass of mf as the mass of fluid or water, mass of liquid, okay, this is usually water. Okay, now mg is nothing but mass of dry vapor. So what is it mathematically? X is equal to mass of dry vapor divided by mass of water plus mg. Okay, now mf and mg. See, mf is the mass of the liquid contained in that wet steam. Mg is the mass of the dry vapor. If I take the ratio of it, okay. So if suppose this mf plus mg is equal to m or 1 kg, then suppose mass of gas is maybe 0.8 kg, then the value of x will be 0.8. So 0.8, 0.9, 0.95, what this indicates that it is 90% dry. Higher the number, Okay, if I take for example 1 kg of wet steam, 0.9 is the dry steam and 0.1 is the, so if it is 0.9 is the dry steam and 0.1 is the water vapor, then the value of x is directly it is 0.9. Okay. Now, so you have to remember that this particular thing. If it is completely dry, then the value of x. So let me write that. Okay. At dry condition, at completely dry condition, the value of x is 1 because mass of gas, sorry, vapor and mass of fluid is, so mass of liquid is 0. So your mass of vapor is 1 kg or mass, so 1 by 1, it is 1. So when it is completely dry, x will be 1. When it is completely liquid, x is equal to 0. That you need not tell. You can't have any x is equal to 0. You will be having any number between, so x lies between, see, 0, x lies between 0 and 1. It can be 0.2. Lower the number, the quantity of dry steam is less. Higher the number, the quantity of the dry steam is higher. Are you getting? So the next definition. Okay, superheated or enthalpy of dry steam. The next thing is enthalpy of dry steam. Fourth definition. Okay, enthalpy of dry steam. Enthalpy of dry steam. What is it actually? It is the amount of heat required to convert 1 kg of water at its saturation temperature to the dry condition. That is your Hg. So this is usually denoted by Hg. Okay, it is the amount of heat required. It is the amount of heat required to convert 1 kg of water. So 1 kg of water at its saturation temperature. At its saturation temperature to dry condition. Saturation temperature to dry condition. Where x is equal to 1. Dry condition means your x is equal to 1. That's the meaning of it. And this is called as enthalpy of dry steam. Okay. Next, enthalpy of superheat. Okay. Enthalpy of superheat, the last definition. Enthalpy of superheat. Enthalpy of superheat. It is also called as, maybe I define it by H soup. At any given point, you want to find what is its superheated value. It will be Hg plus H soup. So, okay, it is the amount of heat required. It is the amount of heat required. Amount of heat required to convert 1 kg of steam. To convert 1 kg of steam at dry condition. Steam at dry condition. So 1 kg of steam at dry condition to the degree of superheat. To a degree of superheat. To a degree of superheat. Okay, which is we call it as T soup temperature. Okay, then what is it actually? Mathematically, this H soup is equal to, I need to get the Cp of superheated steam, which you call it as Cp of soup, T soup minus T saturation. So mathematically, so some of the books instead of dry condition, So they can give this as saturation also. So to convert the 1 kg of steam at saturation condition or saturated condition to the degree of superheated condition or superheated condition, we call it as enthalpy of superheat. Okay. Now the next part is actually, so before I go to the next part, I want to introduce you people to the steam tables. Okay. So properties of wet vapor. Properties of wet vapor. Okay. If I want to calculate all these things, so wet vapor, all these things and all, I need to introduce you to the maybe your steam tables. If you have steam tables, please open it. So I have an ASME steam table with me. I'll be using that steam tables. Okay. I'm using the ASME steam table. It doesn't matter which steam table you are using. Okay. So steam tables actually, they are based on two conditions. So steam tables I can have based on pressure and steam tables based on temperature. Okay. Steam tables based on pressure, steam table based on pressure. Okay. Why the steam tables are important? We all know that. So if you look at the thermodynamic property relationships, okay, there are 6 basic thermodynamic properties are there. Those are pressure, temperature, volume, internal energy, enthalpy, entropy. All these things are there. So I should be able to calculate these particular properties at any given condition, or I need to analyze it for any kind of situation when executing a thermodynamic process or a thermodynamic cycle. Or because when I am executing a thermodynamic cycle, what I am trying to do, I am trying to make it to work on any kind of a device, and these values of these properties are determined theoretically and experimentally, and they are tabulated. Okay, so this property tables or steam tables, what we see, they have been from the they have been from the theoretical calculation as well as from the practical or experimental condition. So both the ways they have done this, and it varies from person to person. So if I have a thermodynamic or maybe your steam tables from R.S. Kurmi or steam tables from maybe Rajput or steam tables from this thing, so these values will change because what type of equation I'm going to use or what type of computer I'm going to use, because they are all numerically got actually numerically in experiment. So there will be always a little bit of slightly there will be there. Say if I take for example at a triple point, so water, so 0.001 degrees Celsius. Okay, then the corresponding pressure, so it may be slightly varying the second decimal or third decimal from one table to other table. So that we should be able to look into it. Now, so all these tables are, say all these property values are either calculated or experimentally obtained and tabulated based on two conditions. One is on the pressure. That means I'm going to have the first column. How to differentiate between the property tables based on pressure or the temperature means you look at the first column. If the first column in your steam table is based on pressure, we call it as that particular steam table is based on pressure. If the first column is temperature, that we call it as the steam tables based on temperature. So the values, so you have to look into that. Then what are the values? So what are the thermodynamic properties which are we are going to look into it actually? The first thing is the pressures. The second thing is the saturation temperature. What we see here, this particular thing, these are saturation temperatures. These are saturation temperatures corresponding to, say if I take for example, see megapascals will be there, or some books they will be given kilopascal, some books they will give, some steam tables they will give in bar, so it doesn't matter. So these values will change in the decimal points, that's it. So now for this particular thing, so if I take for example 0.001 bar, so the corresponding saturation temperature is 6.97 degrees Celsius. Now what are the values we will be getting in your steam tables? So as I told, you will be getting the specific volume. See, all the things are specific values. All the things are specific values. That means per kg. Okay. Then specific enthalpy, specific entropy. That's all. Okay. So specific volume, you will be getting the volume at the liquid state at the dry condition. Enthalpy at the liquid state, enthalpy at the dry condition. Entropy at the liquid state, entropy at the dry condition. So this is what it will be getting it for. See, for different pressures, temperatures, you'll be getting the specific volumes of liquid, vapor, enthalpy of liquid, vapor, entropy of a liquid plus vapor. And some of the books I have seen, some of the steam tables, what they do actually, they say at any given point, say difference of these things, the difference of HV minus HF, they will give it as HFG or HFV or something. That is difference of that. So 2513.7 minus 29.298. They will give that as a directly the difference in the values. Even entropy also they will try to give this. So which you can calculate using your calculator once you get the value, or you can directly. So they are making your life a little bit easier having one more column. So most of the team tables will be having either two columns for specific volume, specific enthalpy, or specific entropy, or three columns. That's all. So value for the liquid, value for the vapor, or a difference value. Okay. Now HF is the enthalpy. So I'm going to say instead of HL, I'm going to use HF. HF is the enthalpy for saturated liquid. Okay. If you go and see here, HF is the enthalpy for the liquid. Hg or Hv, Hg is the enthalpy for the vapor. Okay. That SF is the entropy for the liquid, and Sg is the entropy for the vapor. And Vf is the specific volume for the liquid, and Vg is the entropy for the specific volume for the vapor. Okay. Now, what is this actually at any given point? We call change in enthalpy during evaporation or latent condition at any given point I want to find actually. So I will be finding between Hg minus Hf, Sg minus Sf, Vg minus Vf. So all these things I'm going to do it actually. So you can look into it anything. So you can easily find this particular thing in your condition. So this is for the steam table based on pressure actually. So if I go down, so the next, so I have superheated condition, I will come to that. Okay. Now I have the steam tables based on temperature. Oh, I have to go up actually. Okay. So steam tables based on temperature. Look at this. This is based on temperature. See, temperature. Look at this. This is based on temperature. That means the first column is the saturation temperature. The second column will be the pressures. Then corresponding specific volume values, corresponding specific enthalpy values, and corresponding entropy values will be getting. Okay. So steam tables based on temperature, steam tables based on pressure. Is it clear? You just look into your, if you have a steam table, just have a look into it and you will get all the values. We will, when we go to the numericals, we'll try to use this actually. So any doubts? Okay. We'll go to
Sir,
the...
what if the value is in between these?
Values in between, where, which one? No, you find the difference it. Say I want to find a difference between Hg and Hf. So 2509.001, I'll get HFG.
No, sir. In the temperature, sir, 5 afterwards, and then 10 is there, no, sir. If the given value is 7, sir, then what we have?
You have to interpolate. You have to interpolate. See, all this, see, whatever the thing, even though, say, for example, if it is given as 21 degrees Celsius, okay, what you can do, I am going to, you have to write it clearly, that's why you have to write. I am going to take the property values at 20 degrees Celsius from the steam table. You write and take. Or if you want 21 means, you have to interpolate. So interpolation is the only option. So that's why steam tables, I told it's time consuming. Maybe if you go to the Molière chart, it is more, maybe something it will be much faster, but it's very approximate. So intermediate values you have to interpolate. Say temperature is 52 degrees. So I have to interpolate between 50 and 55. That's a nice question, what you asked. Is that clear? In between values, you have to interpolate. Okay, fine. So now let's go to superrated tables. How to get the values from the superrated condition? See, look at this. See, all the superrated tables are based on, see, in the superrated this thing, you will be getting the corresponding pressure. Look at this. Maybe if I take 0.01 megapascals and the corresponding saturation temperature. And then, what is this actually? This is your degree of superheat. Degree of superheat. What it is actually? It is T sup minus T saturation. If I tell it's 50 degrees at any given point corresponding to 0.01 bar, this is 95.81 minus 45.81. So this is degree of superheat. What you are getting is delta T. What I showed, no? T sup minus T sat. T superheat condition for every value of degree of superheat from 50 degrees. So it is actually a temperature corresponding to that. Okay, degree of superheat, what we are going to get. So this is your superheated condition. So this is your T sup, what we are going to get. So T sup condition at 50 degrees. Sorry, this is directly superheated. So this is a superheated condition. So 50 minus 45.31 is your degree of superheat. 100 minus 45.31 will be your superheated degree of superheat. 150 minus 45.31 will be degree of superheat. 200 minus 45. So like this for different conditions I am getting it. So this is your superheated values. So superheated values. All the T sup values we are getting it. Say in the problem statement I am going to get at a 0.1 megapascals, the steam condition of the steam is at 0.1 megapascals, 350 degrees. That's what I'm going to give in this thing. So what I need to go to the superheated condition, 0.1 megapascals, the saturation temperature is 99.61. So it is 350 degrees Celsius. So what I'm going to do, I will try to take the values from here. So what are the values? See, the first one is the specific volume. The second one is the specific enthalpy. And the third one is the specific entropy. That is small v sup. Small h sup. That is superheated enthalpy. And S sup entropy. For all the superheated condition. So what will be your specific enthalpy for superheated condition corresponding to 350 degrees Celsius? It is 2.8710 kilojoules per kg degree Kelvin. And what is the specific enthalpy for the superheated condition at 350 degrees Celsius? It is 317.75.8. And what is the specific entropy for the superheated condition? It is 8.3865. Are you getting? So like this, for a given pressure and the superheated condition temperature, I can go to your steam tables and get the values. And get all the values, and I'll be able to look into this particular thing and get the values. Is that clear? Any doubts? So now what you do actually, when I try to solve the numericals actually, I will try to look into this particular aspects and try to solve the numericals, how to get the values, all those things. Any doubts in looking into the superheated, maybe your steam tables? You can ask it. Let it be silly. No, there is no question of silly doubts and all. Let it be, your doubt is silly also, doesn't matter. But your doubt should be clarified. So this is the so we have the steam tables based on pressure. You have the steam tables based on temperature. That means first column. Then we have the steam tables for superheated conditions. So now when you're using this particular steam tables, ensure that they are in SI units. Don't try to use MKS or FPS, all those things and all. I'm using ASME steam tables, which is both having a your FPS as well as SI units, both are there. Maybe if you want, I can share this ASME Steam table. I will put it on the your Google Classroom. You can download it, or you can take a printout of it, or you can buy a corresponding Steam tables, which is already, if you have the thermodynamics data handbook, Nijiguna, already that book is there. If you have studied, if you have taken in your BTD course, that itself we can use, because that contains the Steam tables. The only problem I find in that is actually the Mollier diagram is, it's not that good actually. Okay, Mollier diagram is more, looks like a more cumbersome actually. It's not that clear. Is that clear? Fine. Now time is 9:48. So I thought of, okay, no problem. So I thought of doing the properties of wet steam. So it will take good amount of time for me. Okay, this I can take it in the next class. Okay, I can take it to the next class. So we'll stop here.
Thank you, sir.